They called me at 6:47 a.m. It was a two-story house in a quiet neighborhood just outside Tacoma, Washington. One of those places where people leave their doors unlocked during the day, where the only sirens you hear are from ambulances, not police cruisers. The 911 dispatch said it was a suspected burglary turned homicide. But what got my attention wasn't the death. It was a detail buried in the last line of the report. Front door locked from the inside, no signs of forced entry. I've seen my share of messy scenes. I've walked into places that smell like rust and regret, where the silence after violence hangs like smoke. But this one felt different the second I stepped in. The victim was Charles Danvers, 62, retired pharmacist, divorced, no kids, found by his neighbor, Mrs. Kellerman, who noticed his morning paper still untouched by 6 a.m., which, according to her, was absolutely unheard of. She'd been watching that house like a hawk since her husband died 3 years ago. Danvers was lying face down in the hallway, halfway between the living room and the kitchen. Blunt force trauma to the head. Blood pooled beneath his cheek, and a small trail, just a few droplets, led back toward the open bedroom door. Not much struggle. Whatever happened was fast. Here's where it got strange. The door was locked from the inside. Deadbolt engaged. All windows shut. Not just shut, latched. I checked them myself. The security system was disabled. No signs of forced entry. No broken glass. No tampered locks. And yet, Charles was dead. And someone had done it. There was a back door, too, leading to the small yard. Also locked. Also untouched. Now, here's something most people overlook. Burglars almost never lock the door on the way out. Especially not deadbolts that require a key from both sides. It defeats the whole idea of a quick exit. But this wasn't normal burglary. And this wasn't a normal burglar. At first glance, it looked like a break-in. A few drawers open, the TV cabinet half emptied, jewelry box missing. But the big things, the laptop, the expensive whiskey, the brand new smartwatch, were all untouched. I started asking myself, what if it was staged? That's when I went back to the beginning. The bedroom. Inside, everything looked tidy, too tidy. The bed made, curtains drawn, except for one detail. A half-finished glass of water on the nightstand. Now, Danvers had a medical history. Mild insomnia, prescribed to Mazepam. I opened the drawer. Bottle there. Counted 2 pills missing. So he took them the night before. Probably fell asleep fast. And then I saw it. A set of muddy footprints. Faint. Almost gone. Probably wiped down quickly. But still visible under oblique flashlight. Leading from the window to the hallway. But how? The window wasn't opened. Unless it was and got locked again. From the inside. That's when the theory started to crystallize. Someone entered through the bedroom window while Danvers slept. Maybe he woke up, maybe not. Either way, the killer struck him in the hallway, staged a fake robbery, and then, and this is the twist, they left the house with the key. Because there was only one key that fit both deadbolts. And it was still in Danvers' jeans. In the bedroom, that didn't make sense. I called in the locksmith. He confirmed it. That lock required a key to engage the deadbolt from either side. And the only one we found was the one in Danvers' jeans. The killer couldn't have used it to lock up unless they stayed inside. Unless they never left. So I went back to square one. Rechecked everything. That's when I noticed something odd about the attic hatch in the hallway. Dust streaked. Slight scuff marks on the wall below it. We opened it and found the crawl space. It was just barely large enough to fit a person. Insulated, dark, and smelled like sweat and pine cleaner. Whoever had been up there had wiped themselves down. There was a used rag in the corner. And, more importantly, a thermos with fingerprints. We ran them. They matched a guy named Brian Keegan, 38, former HVAC tech. Had done maintenance work on the Danvers house 3 months prior. No priors. No red flags. But when we showed up at his apartment, he was gone. It took a week to find him. We tracked his car through toll cameras across state lines into Oregon. He was found sleeping in the back of his SUV behind a strip mall near Eugene. He didn't resist. almost like he was expecting it. In interrogation, he confessed, but not the way we thought. Turns out, he wasn't robbing the house. He'd been living in it. He'd done work in the attic months ago, realized he could access it from the garage and stay up there unnoticed. Danvers lived alone, had a routine, never went up there. Keegan had been squatting for nearly a week. At night, he'd sneak down for food, then climb back up. He claimed he didn't mean to kill him. That night, Danvers caught him in the kitchen. He panicked, hit him with a table lamp. Didn't check if he was dead, just ran. But when he heard police outside, he snuck back into the attic and waited. 12 hours, hiding above the body, listening to us talk, to cameras flash, to questions being asked. He watched us the entire time. He only left when we did. Now here's the part that sticks with me. When I asked him why he went back to the attic instead of running, he said this: "It was the only place I felt safe." Psychologically, that says everything. He'd been invisible for so long that hiding became home. Even after murder, even after the sirens, even after the blood. It wasn't just a crime scene. It was where the monster slept. And I was in the house the whole time. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Blood is a coppery bite when it's fresh, but when it's mixed with lemon detergent, burnt toast, and panic, it gets into your throat and stays there. I walked into that kitchen at 7:12 a.m., and I knew instantly this wasn't just another domestic gone wrong. Something about it didn't sit right. The victim was Claire Hammond, 34, marketing executive, no kids, lived alone in a mid-sized apartment complex in Santa Rosa, California. According to the neighbor who called it in, Claire's boyfriend, Daniel, had shown up screaming for help, claiming she was dead, and she was. Stab wounds, 10 of them, clean, consistent, deliberate, center mass, no hesitation marks. Whoever did it knew what they were doing, or was so far gone in rage that hesitation didn't matter. But here's where it got strange. There was no murder weapon. Now, that's not unheard of. Knives get tossed, flushed, buried. But in this case, the kitchen was spotless, almost too spotless. Sink empty, counters gleaming, and the knife block perfectly intact. Every knife in its place. Except there was one extra. That's what threw me. 6 knives in the set, but 7 in the block. We double-checked the model. Manufacturer website confirmed. The standard culinary set comes with 6 blades. A chef's knife, a paring knife, a bread knife, 2 utility blades, and a carving knife. That's it. So why 7? We pulled the knives. The first 6 matched. Branded uniform. Same wear. But the 7th? Slightly off. Same handle style. But the grip was smoother. Newer. The blade was pristine. And it didn't quite sit right in the slot. Just a bit too snug. We ran luminol on the blade. Nothing. Clean. Sterile. Too sterile. Claire's wounds indicated a long, thin blade, about 8 inches. Serrated. 3 punctures overlapped at the same depth and angle, suggesting repeated motion without deviation. Whoever did it was strong, methodical, and focused. But here's the thing. The serration pattern didn't match any knife in the block, which meant either the killer brought their own knife and took it when they left, or they swapped it. That's when we started digging. Daniel, the boyfriend, claimed he'd spent the night at his place. Said he texted Claire around midnight. No response. Came by in the morning when she didn't answer. Story checked out. Security camera showed him arriving at 6:39 a.m., exactly when the neighbor said she heard the screams. But then we checked the footage from the apartment complex's rear entrance, and we saw someone else. At 3:27 a.m., a figure in a hoodie entered the rear door with a key. No forced entry. Walked straight in, head down, no hesitation. And here's what chilled me. They were carrying something, a small rolled-up towel, like someone concealing a blade. We ran the time frame back. Claire's smartwatch stopped recording a heartbeat at 3:41 a.m. 14 minutes. That's all the killer needed. I had forensics recheck the knife block, and that's when we found it. A single fiber, White cotton, microscopic, lodged deep in the slot of the seventh knife. Not from a kitchen towel. From medical gauze. The kind you'd use to clean blood off steel. I went through Claire's records again. Buried in her cloud storage was a note from a few weeks ago. Saw Eric again. Told him it's really over this time. He's not taking it well. Eric was her ex-EMT. Had access to medical supplies. And here's the detail that locked it all in. He gave her that knife block as a housewarming gift last year. When we brought him in, he was calm. Too calm. Said he hadn't spoken to Claire in weeks. Claimed he didn't even know where she lived now. But under his fingernails, we found traces of Claire's blood. Almost nothing. A microscopic smear. Probably from when he adjusted her hair after the kill. That's what cracked him. He confessed. Said he brought a matching knife from the same set. Bought it online. Practiced inserting it in a clone block at home until it fit perfectly. After the murder, he swapped the bloodied blade with the clean one he brought. Left the extra in her kitchen. Took the real murder weapon with him. His words? I didn't want her to be remembered as a mess. I just wanted her to be perfect. Clean, like I remembered her. Psychological control. The need not just to kill, but to curate the aftermath. To stage a scene not just to avoid capture, but to preserve a fantasy. It wasn't a crime of passion. It was theater. And the audience? Me, the forensics team. Everyone watching from behind the glass. That kitchen wasn't just missing a knife. It was missing the truth until we forced it out. It was one of those cases where, at first glance, everything felt empty. Not just the scene, but the logic behind it. A vast field behind an abandoned high school in Modesto, California. Dried grass, old bleachers rotting under the sun, and a single tire track cutting a perfect arc through the dirt. One set, one vehicle, and right at the end of it, a body. The victim was Jordan Wyatt, 19, college sophomore. Smart kid, no criminal record, well-liked, no history of drugs or trouble. Reported missing 3 days earlier by his roommate. Found face up in the middle of the field, arms crossed, eyes open. No visible trauma. No signs of struggle. The weird part? His shoes were clean. That stopped me cold, because the field wasn't. It hadn't rained in weeks, but the dirt was dusty, loose like flour. My boots picked it up with every step. But Jordan's soles were spotless. No trace of earth, not even around the edges. It meant one thing. He didn't walk there. He was placed. But there were no footprints leading to or from the body. Only that one arc of tire track, semicircular, entering from the east edge of the field and looping back toward the school's old maintenance road. But here's the kicker. That road had been fenced off for years. Padlocked. The school shut down in 2012. No security cams. No maintenance crews. The only entrance had a rusted-out chain wrapped 5 times around the gate. I asked the responding officers how they got in. We had to cut it, they said. So how did the killer get in? I had the team photograph the tire tread. Deep ridges, space-wide, off-road pattern. Not standard on sedans or small pickups. Looked military grade. We sent it in for analysis. The system flagged it fast. HMMWV. Humvee. Which didn't make sense until we found Jordan's phone in his backpack. Battery dead, but recoverable. And in the search history, a Craigslist ad. Private photography gig, cash. Experience not required. Bring ID. The reply address was a burner. But there was a single outgoing message. Sent to Jordan's phone 2 nights before he disappeared. Meet behind Fremont High. 10 p.m. Come alone. We traced the IP. VPN masked. But it bounced once, just once, off a signal in Fort Honolulu, a military training base about 2 hours south. Now it was starting to smell like something bigger. I reached out to a contact in military logistics. Asked if any vehicles matching that tread had gone off base without clearance. Took him 24 hours to call me back. They were missing one. A Humvee used in training exercises. logged as in maintenance. But the garage logs were blank for that week. No signatures, no service records. Inside job, then came the autopsy. Jordan hadn't been shot or stabbed, no broken bones, no drugs in the system. Cause of death? Asphyxiation, but not from strangulation, from gas, carbon monoxide. Someone had rigged an enclosed system, made him breathe it in while unconscious, painless, clinical, cold, and that's when it hit me. This wasn't a personal crime. It was procedural. Someone rehearsed this. We went back to the Craigslist ad. Had cybercrime pull every version of it, backdated through caches. Same language had been posted 6 other times in the past year. Each time in a different California city. Same phrasing, same contact method. We cross-referenced missing persons reports tied to those dates and locations. 3 matches, all young men, all students, all still missing. Until now, no one had made the connection. The turning point came from a mistake. One of the images a forensics team took captured a faint emblem burned into the tread at the bottom of the tire groove. Not standard. Looked almost decorative. It was a custom branding. We dug deeper. Found a collector. Retired corporal who refurbished military vehicles. Sold parts to hobbyists. One of his tires had been stolen 6 months earlier. He remembered who came asking about them before that. Guy named Evan Hale. Early 30s. Former private contractor, had a reputation for disappearing in the middle of contracts. No permanent address. We tracked his purchases. Found a storage unit under a fake name in Bakersfield. Inside, blueprints, photos, fake ads printed out, notes on movement patterns, rural blind spots, police response times. And in the corner, a piece of flooring from the back of a Humvee with dry blood on it. Evan didn't leave fingerprints, but he left oil residue on a lens cap tucked under one of the blueprints. The brand? A rare European model. Sold at only one store in L.A. We got the store's camera footage. And there he was, face uncovered. That was 2 weeks ago. Evan Hale's now on the run, but we got enough to link him to 3 confirmed deaths. Jordan was just the first body we recovered. The others may still be out there, waiting. What got me about this case wasn't just the tire. It was the efficiency, the precision, how the entire scene was built to leave no trace, no noise, no struggle. But even when someone tries to erase the story, dirt remembers. And that tire, out in the middle of nowhere, shouldn't have been there. But it was. And that's how the whole thing unraveled. It started with a phone call that never should have gone through. 2:14 a.m. A woman named Melissa Groves dialed 911 from her cell phone in a small town outside Flagstaff, Arizona. Her voice was panicked, whispering. The recording was brief, just 12 seconds. He's inside. Please, he's coming up the SD. Then silence. The line cut. When police arrived 22 minutes later, they found the front door ajar. No sign of forced entry. No sign of Melissa. No blood, no mess, nothing broken. Just a steaming mug of chamomile tea on the coffee table and a phone resting neatly on the couch. The strange part? The phone was powered off. No outgoing call log. No record of a 911 call. I was called in because of that one detail. See, even when phones are wiped or powered down, the call data should still appear in the carrier logs. But when we subpoenaed her records, nothing. No outgoing calls that night. Not even system pings. The dispatcher swore she heard it live, not a recording, and the call had been routed through the tower closest to Melissa's house. GPS coordinates matched. So the question was, how did a woman who never made a call make one? Melissa Groves, 29, freelance graphic designer, lived alone, no criminal history. No stalkers or threats. Lived a low-profile life. Worked from home. Friends describe her as paranoid, but in a cute way. Always locked her doors. Always triple-checked windows. I walked through the house myself. Two-bedroom, open concept, cozy. Nothing out of place. Not even the signs of a struggle. Except one thing. A chair in the corner of her bedroom had been moved. You wouldn't notice unless you really looked. The indent in the carpet didn't match the leg position. Someone had sat there, facing the bed, waiting. We dusted it. No usable prints. But one tiny flake of dried skin near the armrest gave us partial DNA. Male. No match in the system. I started digging into Melissa's recent activity. Her last texts were to a friend in California. At 11:48 p.m., she wrote, "Thought I saw someone in the yard again. Might just be shadows." No follow-up. We pulled footage from a neighbor's security camera, facing the front of her house, grainy. But at exactly 2:08 a.m., 6 minutes before the 911 call, a figure walks past. Hooded, medium build, doesn't go to the door, walks past the house, and then disappears off frame. Here's where it gets eerie. That same footage shows no one ever leaving. We canvassed the area. No fresh tracks. Ground was dry, undisturbed. Dogs caught no scent trail beyond the porch. It was like whoever went in never came back out. A week went by. No ransom demands. No activity on her bank account, cards, or social media. She was just gone until the second call, 10 days later. Same dispatcher. Middle of the night. Same whispering voice. "Please, I don't know where I am." 12 seconds again. And then silence. We triangulated the signal. This time from a decommissioned radio tower 12 miles west in the forest. We hiked out. Took 3 hours. No roads, just dirt paths. But eventually we found it. The old tower. Powerless. Disconnected since 2006. Yet somehow a phone signal had pinged from there. We found something else, too. A small metal container buried behind the structure. Inside, a prepaid burner phone. Battery dead. SIM card missing. And taped inside the lid, Melissa's ID. Still no trace of her. But now we had a pattern. A call that shouldn't exist. From a phone that left no digital fingerprint. Triangulated to a place where no signal should exist either. This wasn't just about Melissa anymore. We brought in telecom specialists. They confirmed the first call had not passed through traditional digital channels. The signature matched something they hadn't seen in years, an analog burst signal, like a ghost frequency riding old radio waves. Military tech. Obsolete, mostly, unless you were someone who knew how to bend the rules. The only recent analog burst patent request came from a former communications engineer named Wallace Grant, fired 3 years ago for unauthorized projects. He disappeared. Off-grid. Last known location? Northern Arizona. We pulled his rental history. One address matched an old trailer out in the Coconino Forest. Inside, we found schematics. Wires. Crude signal amplifiers. Maps marked with circles around abandoned towers. And in one folder, Polaroids. Melissa, sleeping, in her own house. Different nights, different clothes, all taken from outside the windows. He'd been watching her for weeks. He used custom analog gear to simulate a 911 call, bouncing off old towers, untraceable by modern systems. Then he took her, quietly, cleanly, but he made a mistake. The second call, he thought he could do it again, that he had control. But he underestimated Melissa, because the second call wasn't from him. It was from her. We tested the burner phone. Tiny scratch on the SIM port showed it had been removed, not by someone experienced. Rough, desperate. Melissa had escaped long enough to get the call out using his own tools. She was alive. We searched the woods for 5 days. Found nothing, until we saw the smoke. A half-burnt tarp near an old stream bed. Underneath it, bones. Charred. Male. Dental confirmed. Wallace Grant. And 20 feet from his body, tucked into a hollowed log, was Melissa, alive, dehydrated, bruised, but alive. She'd waited until he fell asleep, used a rusted camp tool to defend herself, hid for 3 days before the search team spotted the tarp. Her first words to me, once she could speak again, he made everything feel like it wasn't real. even the sound of my own voice. It was one of the most terrifying cases I've ever worked, because it wasn't about what you could hear. It was about what you were never supposed to. And the call that couldn't have happened did. It was a case I wasn't even supposed to take. A local precinct in Santa Fe reached out asking for a second opinion on something that, to them, felt off. No body, no weapon, no crime scene in the traditional sense, just a single photograph. A woman named Rebecca Langston, 42, vanished during a weekend trip with her husband to a remote desert Airbnb. He claimed she went for a walk before sunset and never came back. Search teams found no trace. No signs of struggle, no blood, no footprints beyond what they both had left getting out of the car. But the husband, Mitchell Langston, provided one curious piece of evidence. A photo taken with Rebecca's phone. According to him, the last photo before she disappeared. It was a wide shot of the desert horizon. Rocks, brush, a few scattered cacti, and in the sky, unmistakably, two suns. One low, just above the mesa, setting, the other, fainter, higher up to the right. At first glance, it looked like a lens flare, but it wasn't. I've worked crime scenes for over 20 years, and I've seen enough digital artifacts to know when something is off. This wasn't a reflection. It cast shadows. The cactus in the foreground leaned slightly east, casting two shadows. One long, one shorter. The lighting angles didn't match. That's when I stopped thinking like a cop and started thinking like a forensics guy again. Rebecca was an amateur photographer, posted regularly online, loved symmetry and light play. I reviewed her feed and something stood out. She always edited her shots, adjusted saturation, contrast, sometimes even overexposed the sky. But this photo, completely raw, unfiltered. That's not how she posted, ever. So why leave this one untouched? I had the image pulled from the original device. Metadata confirmed it was taken at 6:48 p.m. local time. No GPS anomalies, no filters. But the second light source wasn't natural, and it wasn't solar. It was too narrow, too defined. I reached out to a light physics analyst. She ran spectrum modeling on the brightness levels. Her conclusion? The primary light source was the sun. The second was a concentrated reflection, like a high-powered beam bouncing off something metallic. Problem was, the Airbnb was 20 miles from the nearest structure, and according to weather logs, there were no helicopters, aircraft, or storms in the area. That left one possibility. Someone was out there, with equipment. We re-examined the terrain in the photo. Near the base of the second sun, there was a dark smudge, barely visible. Zoomed in, it looked like a rectangular shape halfway buried in sand. Not rock, not natural. I went to the site myself, took a drone, searched the surrounding area using the shadows as reference, and I found it, an abandoned research pod, half sunken, no identifying markings. Inside were old power cables, burnt insulation, and what looked like an improvised solar array, long since decommissioned. And in the sand nearby, a single boot print, too small for Mitchell's size, and too recent to be from an old team. We ran the print. No match in national databases. But in a separate cache beneath the rusted paneling of the pod, we found something else. A stack of Polaroids. Most were of desert rock. Boring. Out of focus. But one, dated the day before Rebecca vanished, showed her, sitting on a folding chair, smiling, and next to her, another woman. Same height, same build, same hair, but not the same face. That image broke the case open, because the second woman had been missing for 4 years. Name, Cara DeWitt, vanished from a hiking trail in Nevada. No connection to Rebecca. No reason their paths should have crossed. Except now, we had a photograph of them together. Mitchell was brought back in. We showed him the photo. He froze. Claimed he had no idea who the other woman was. But his fingerprints were on the back of the Polaroid. The timeline was unraveling. Turns out Mitchell had rented the same desert Airbnb 3 times before. each time under different aliases. Always alone. We dug into his financials. Quiet offshore payments, small but steady, traced to an organization registered under a defunct energy research company. It was a shell. We think Mitchell wasn't just vacationing with his wife. He was luring her, and she wasn't the first. Both Rebecca and Kara had similar digital footprints. Online presence, photography hobbies, interest in solar phenomena. It wasn't random. It was targeted. Mitchell had a type. What for, we still don't fully understand. But the final detail came from the photo itself. Embedded deep in the metadata, buried in the hex code, was a geotag from a third-party app Rebecca had used only once. A forgotten plugin that saved location data redundantly. It pinged a secondary device nearby. Not her phone, someone else's. And that device, when traced with manufacturer, was part of a limited test batch issued to a lab in New Mexico for solar field calibration. Issued to Kara DeWitt. That's when it hit me. Rebecca wasn't just taking a picture of the sunset. She was taking a picture of evidence. Something she'd just seen. Someone, and she never got the chance to post it. Because someone, Mitchell or whoever he was working with, made sure she disappeared right after. But the photo made it out. She made sure of that. 2 light sources. 1 natural. 1 human. 1 truth. 1 lie. The desert doesn't hide the truth. It just waits for someone to see it the right way. And in the end, it wasn't the sun that exposed what happened to Rebecca Langston. It was the second one.